is Black money?
About economic liberation and
Mm.
freedom.
Critical conversations to invigorate our communities through Black-led CDFIs.
But most importantly, we want people to create wealth.
When we look at our communities, we still see a big disinvestment.
Going from resourceful to resourced.
CDFIs have that high touch. They understand their customers. They know how to reach out to those customers. They stay in touch with those customers.
We are trying to create job makers and not just job takers.
Yeah, I've even heard it said recently that great leaders don't lead from the top down, they lead from the bottom up because they're actually lifting everybody.
We have to do more than just being a regular lender.
Don't give me this story about if I teach you how to fish. Give me some money.
Hey, everybody. Happy Tuesday to you. Justin Minott here from the African American Alliance of CDFI CEOs. And I have with me, making time for us on a big week, big day. Really appreciate you. Lori Gay, President and CEO of Neighborhood Housing Services of LA County. Lori, good to have you here.
Great being here, Justin. Thank you.
Of course. Now, Lori, we're getting right into it. Here's what I want to know off the top. We're going to change up the order a little bit. What does Black liberation mean to you, Lori Gay?
Trick question.
No, this is no trick question. What does it mean to you? You can't get it wrong.
So true. Well, I think for me, the freedom comes in the faith we have. And I think as Black people, many of us have stepped away from our faith. And I'm one of those people who's in the earth to chase God, do good things, be a blessing to people. And that's liberating for me as I see people get freed when they believe in something bigger than themselves. And I'm always hopeful it's God, right? But I think in the end, what we find is that no one can enslave your mind.
Yeah.
You have to be the person who renews your mind, get up, start over every day, and decide that you're not stuck. And I spend a good amount of time, I think, trying to inspire people about that, no matter what their racial background is, that they can achieve the dreams they have, but they do need to plan the work the plan. And that's where your freedom comes, because you write it down, you work it through, work it out.
I love it. Come on, starting off strong off the top. That's beautiful. Now, Lori, I want to hear, you are now at an organization celebrating its 40th anniversary. We're going to talk about that a little bit. How did you get into this work, this role? Give us the formation of Lori. Yeah,
I'm one of those weird kind of maturations where
we like weird. You're going to fit right in with me. Isn't that right, Angela?
So
backstage, my colleague.
Angela's backstage. I started as a kid, preacher's kid, in a small rural town where I was spit on and called out of my name every day in California. So I always joke with some of my peers that, people can be hateful anywhere. It doesn't take the South for that, and it doesn't take prison for that. People can just be off. And so that background where my parents taught us to love in spite of the drama, stress and drama, right, was where I began. And I saw my father seeing himself as the pastor of the whole little dinky town. And if you asked him what religion he was and said, "Are you Baptist?" he said, "Yeah." If you said Methodist, "Yeah, I'm that too." If you asked him if he was Episcopal, yep. And he had licenses in like 9 or 10 different religious denominations because he didn't want to have people see him but see God, right? And so we grew up with that fervor and that enthusiasm. My mother walked right alongside him in that work. And then she served as president of the school board in our little town for like 25 years, even though she would get spit on and told she didn't matter, right? And people just kept electing her. So that conflict, I think, is what you see in America today. It's constant. And when you grow up with that and you realize that the rural white poor are in the same economic condition as many urban and or rural Black people, it's humbling because in the end, much of this angst we have comes down to economics. And so for me, I realized that very early, went to school, did my time, right? Moved to LA where more of my relatives were, got out of the Northern California space and just kept going. I saw a little bitty ad in the LA Times when I was in my early 20s for a job that looked interesting. And I went on a 5-hour interview with a bunch of residents. And these were people that loved their neighborhood on the east side of LA.
Wow.
And the neighborhood looked a mess, right? But they had pride in ownership, pride in being there. And I joined immediately. Then they couldn't pay me. So I left. I left after like 6 or 8 months because they were going to lay
They
everybody
didn't tell
off.
you that within the 5 hours. They didn't get to that part.
Yeah, nobody was talking about all the money. They were talking about the promise, right?
Uh,
Promise, the things we're going to do, and what a great community it had been, because this was a
mm,
jazz hub in LA. The Green Book, many people would go to this part of South Los Angeles looking at the Green Book back in the day. So
wow.
rich history. And so a few years, then they talk 6 months or so. Let me go back. We're getting ready to lay people off. So I bounced, went into healthcare marketing. And then 2 years later, they called me back and said, we're better. We need you back. And so I started as an administrative person with a
Mhm.
college degree in economics because I loved the work and the
Wow.
mission.
Yes.
And then over a series of, it was probably a year and a half, a bunch of people left, some stayed, and I became the boss lady. And so I'm forever grateful for people
Wow.
who saw opportunity, saw promise in me, right? Gave me a shot at it. And I was working 15, 20 hours a day. I still work at least 12 to 15 a
Wow.
day. And that's been me for 34 years, right? So I joke all the time and say all the failures are mine over time and all the successes are my team. And I'm grateful for that.
That's the way. That's the way to do it. I love that leadership lesson. I hope leaders are paying attention to that, because that is it. Is be
Yeah, you
generous,
can't do
giving
it by
away the
yourself.
praise.
You can't do it by yourself. And many times our team, our staff team will see me just up there doing whatever. They don't know the preparation, right? Or the struggle. I was told by somebody last year, another Black CEO, Lori, you make it look too easy. And I
Mm,
had never thought about that, right? Because
mm.
you're taught, I'm 62, so you're taught to just suck it up, get going, do what you got to do. And the notion of
Right.
making
Not make a
it look,
big fuss about it. And
yeah, and they hear me complain a little now because I get tired, right? But I
yeah.
think it's generally, the job to start over every day and make the most of it. But I
Mm,
do think that as we look to build a field of, community minded young people of color, and particularly Black young people,
mhm.
and, kind of all those different terms they give us of millennials and so forth, we owe them the truth about the hard work, and then that they need to not think that life comes easy to them. If you
Mm,
grew up middle class, good for you, but there's a whole bunch of people, 40, 50% of our country, that are not there. And the
mm.
question is, are you called to do something about it? I would suggest they are. And so we stay after it. We have a lot of young interns that come through. In LA, people don't know this probably about Los Angeles, but our Human Relations Commission has given one statistic that I've always watched every year. And it's the number of people who live in the city or county of Los Angeles outside of their native country. There are only two major people groups that do not live in Los Angeles outside of their native country. And that is Chinese families. They tend to migrate to San Francisco, and then
Mhm.
Jewish families who migrate to New York. But if you think about Samoa, right, or Guinea or any other country,
Yeah.
the bulk of the people outside of their native country live in a Los Angeles region. That kind of
Wow.
people stuff, right? And I'm sure it vacillates a little, but
Mhm.
that people migration, right, and responding to diverse publics in many, many languages it's work, and we can minimize it every day if we'd like, but the truth is we have to learn to accept people where they are.
Mm.
And that's been my biggest life lesson, is just take people in, breathe them in. And you got your own ideas, your way you think things should go, but ultimately caring for people and realizing that we can major on the majors, minor on the minors, will help us all. And it's a struggle, right? But I know I push for that every day, try my best to stay motivating and positive for people. But it's hard. The work is not any easier each day. And that's another life lesson. Is there's going to
Yeah.
always be those who need us. And so you just have to make a decision that we're here to serve, we do our best, jump back up and try it again.
I love it. And I love that you're keeping it real because it is true. I think a lot of times people, what do they say? People see the glory, but they don't know the story, right? And there's all of the background that goes into what you're doing and how you're doing and saying that it's not easy and it's worth it. I remember there was, an old, and, they should have been a sponsor, but there's an old cough syrup called Buckley's. And I don't know how many people, I'm from Canada. So,
You date
and their
yourself.
slogan was, it tastes awful and it works. Right, it's like there's both. It tastes awful and it works. Like we're not shying away from it. That stuff was nasty, but I'll tell you that get rid of whatever
It'll
you
keep
have.
well.
So that's
Keep
it.
you
Yeah,
well.
it really would. I want to give a shout out. I'm seeing my friend Tia Dorset in the building. Good to see you.
All
Who else
right.
is in the digital room? Hop on in the chat. Let us know what you're up to. Good to see you, Tia. Now, next question for you, Lori. Talked about the formation. Now talk about what NHS is up to now. What does it look like day to day? What is your work? What are some of the things that you're most proud of?
Well, it's still the same, I'd say, as it was 30 plus years ago. For me, it's the people. We had an auditor who said last year, community building is in your DNA at NHS. And I just love that
Wow.
because we engage families, we're excited about them. Uh, Given that statistic I gave you, we embrace all kinds of people. We're
Yeah.
always adapting, right? And so things we're proud of, we've touched over 28,000 housing and commercial units in terms of our production.
Wow.
And either we've lent the money to them or we've developed it as a developer. And so NHS has a broader span. Our lending company as a CDFI, of course, is a huge book of business.
Yeah.
But we also serve as a developer, fixing up stuff, building new, doing what we got to do. And I think then financial education, those are our big three, right? And literacy work. And so I think, most proud that that work has been there, that we hit 40. There's many years we didn't know if we were going to make it, right? So you make the adjustments. But in the end, we're here. And then I'd say, as we are in the now, the urgency of now is about legacy building. And so our legacy project, we formed it a decade ago, started pushing on it probably 7 years ago, and just kept adding some things. We started as a developer first and trying to help people really save their homes, their properties, their businesses. And we've always done that over the 40, but we framed it in a cultural space, starting with Black people, because post foreclosures 2008 to 12, Black people lost so significantly in our region. People don't remember the statistics, but when foreclosures hit in 2008, we were experiencing a foreclosure in LA County every 90 minutes. By the time it hit the peak at the end of 2008, starting into 2009, it was every 90 seconds. And Black people were at the tip of that spear.
Wow.
We had borrowed wrong, and borrowed from lenders who were irresponsible. Everybody getting into arm lending, trying to take the travel, right? Get the boat, the cars, the bling. It just was off. And that was true of every group, but Black people, we felt it. And so what I'd say is that to be able to be at that point, when we got into it deeply, we were the nation's largest foreclosure counseling response team, because we
Wow.
have over 50 organizations working throughout the region. And it was just a phenomenal time to be able to save, right, as many families from foreclosure as we could and not lose the generational wealth they had built. So I think that legacy project piece really kicked in, and then we just kept adding momentum, because as a developer, we were able to buy, fix up, and then resell the properties that were lost to many, many families in community. So I think that work now, today, looks like monthly legacy legal clinics where people are signing their estate plans, fully funded estate plans. They are doing intake, they're joining. But we kick it off with a legacy summit. And this year we did 6 of them. We thought we'd do quarterly, and people kept bugging us to do more. And at that legacy summit, it's the introduction. And so we're offering classes on home ownership, home repair, don't move, improve, we call it, on small business legacy planning. And then there's an estate planning kind of general session that goes on for a while. And Amy Griffin, who's the baddest girl on the planet,
Shout
from
out Amy Griffin.
Amy Griffin, shout out, life and legacy planners, counselors in DC. She flies in and does that initial session. And then last but not least, we added something called Legacy Talks this 6 months ago. And now we're trying to figure out how to feature that each time, where I'm chewing it up basically with people we've known in business forever and talking
Wow.
to people in different themes around why legacy matters, why it counts,
Yeah.
why amongst Black and Brown and Asian families in particular, people of color, we have got to hold on. And if your Madeir has owned her home for 60 years, don't be a pissant. Do not sell Madeir's house. Don't do
Please,
it.
please.
Don't do it. Don't sell the business. What's wrong with you? And so we stay after people. We fuss, we cajole, we nurture, we care, we love. But
Yeah.
we're also a strong message, right? That we lose our communities because people perish for lack of knowledge. So
Yeah.
we're trying to get the vision down, right? And encourage people to just get in here. And if you haven't bought your home, why is that? If you're a
Hmm.
puppy, think about puppies. You making 120,000 a year or so, maybe as a young urban professional or more. Some might be at a little less than that. You have to
Hmm.
think through how to save, think through how to plan, think through how to budget. And I stay after young men and women all the time. I'm like, why are you living in Marina Del Rey beyond your scope? Renting an apartment for 4 and 5,000, driving a leased BMW, having some bling on your back,
Right.
hanging
Paying
out with
someone
people,
else's mortgage for them.
paying their mortgage, being in a community you may or may not be a part of. It's a lot. And
Hmm.
you're shunning and rebelling against the things you may have been raised with. Well, how long is that going to go on?
Hmm.
And what does it do for you? How's that working for you? And so if I'm talking to a young Black engineer, I want to press them to plan now, right? And to get their
Yeah.
work done. And so I think that that's been a blessing. And we had our head count on a percentage basis had gone from like 48% of our book of business pre foreclosures. I'm dating it a bit, but just as an example,
Hmm.
to down to 21% after foreclosures. So I think that's where something like this legacy project matters, right? And
Yeah.
then we're saying to people, buy, fix, keep, don't sell. If you need to sell it to us. We're happy to try to buy it from you and keep this in community so
Hmm.
that we don't lose the neighborhoods that we all love. And their corporate, folks are out here always trying to hustle the properties and they'll pay double. But is that really the life and legacy you want to leave, right?
Hmm.
Our seniors are dying off. Who's caring for them? Kids are fighting with them and then expect them to leave them their property. No, right?
Right.
You need to get along to stay along. And I think it's difficult because what we find is that people are not really communicating well and they don't know nothing about their real estate. They just got into it. So that's us.
Hmm.
I think these are things we're excited about. And that even if Black people have to be on the tip of the spear with some of these initiatives, we have every possibility to not be that, not be at the lowest rung, right?
Hmm.
So in our business now, I always joke with my Latino buddies and say, you guys are always fighting to stay at the top of everything in real estate. But we're very much again at like a 45, 44, or 41% of our business. And so I think this intentionality has been good.
That's huge.
And yeah, to almost double the numbers on a consistent basis has mattered.
Oh, that's huge. Now, what do you see? I just love this legacy that you're leaving of seeing gaps and stepping in and saying, okay, no, there's a need here. We got to do something. What do you see as one of the needs of the future? Like, what are you really envisioning in your community? I know you want to keep growing this legacy work. What else are you seeing as far as like, we got to step into this space or this is, going to be an issue coming up?
Yeah, I think what we've said is because we deal with people and property, right?
Hmm.
That's our thing. And if I could be in education reform and prison reform, it's the comprehensive nature of things and
Right.
the systemic racism and systemic stripping down, right, that we've seen has always been a problem. But here's what I'd say. I think we're better together. And so
Mm.
one of the concepts we formed, and I love it, Justin, you come out to LA, I'm touring you through our Center for Sustainable
Hey, I want to
Communities.
see.
You got to come to Compton, man. So we birthed 8 or 9 years ago now a Center for Sustainable Communities, and its name is very much what it's like.
Mm.
And we took an abandoned building that had been vacant for almost 40 years in Compton, and we saw promise in that because everything surrounding it was struggling because the building was a mess, right?
Right.
And the building, I already told you my age, so it was a blue chip stamp store back in the day. And so you have to be at least 50 years old to even know what that is. But I'd say that building sat like that, and kids grew up seeing it graffitied, and it had all these beehives that had gotten into it, so kids couldn't
Mm.
swim in the pool at the Parks and Rec next door, and
Wow.
so on. We know what blight and abandonment looks like.
Yeah.
But what we did is say, let's take this one thing that's a pivot property, fix
Wow.
that up, use all recycled and, special green materials, all the stuff you do when you say
Yeah.
sustainable, right? And green this thing and open it to the public as a community facility. And
Mm.
when we did that, we also brought all our friends. And so there's health, there's economic development. We got a group that's doing anti-human trafficking work and housing young people, taking them out of gang violence and or
Wow.
from a romance pimp, right?
Yeah.
And helping them be safe and in the community again in a way that's more
Hmm.
productive. We have another group who's a small business development corp, and their CEO is a member of the alliance. We've worked together the whole time I've been at NHS, right?
Wow.
And so it's just thinking of the community as a pie, and which pie wedge do you bring? And
Mm.
so we're going to open another center in Wilmington in the first quarter of next year. We're already in a church, the back of a church, like I started in Inglewood. And
Yeah.
just as we go back out, because we hubbed in a single headquarters years ago, like a bank with branches, we want to take our friends who are strong in these
Mm.
major sectors that impact our community with us. There were 17 groups when we first opened that copycatted us, and they like picked one or two things. We picked eight, we're a little rough.
Hmm.
But I think that kind of concept where we're housed in community with strong players then makes us not have to try to do all the work, right, and botch it. We don't want
Yeah.
to do so. If someone's doing healthcare, let them come on in. They know what to do, let them handle it. But they're located in the community, so our money stays in the community and we don't have to go out. And so I see these centers as a wave of the future. We did as soon as we grabbed a hold of this particular structure, but it really is about service delivery,
Yeah.
right? And as a CDFI, we can finance community facilities, we can help our friends be present, and we can really make a difference, I think, in the way that communities are served so that people want to stay and
Mm.
don't seek going west in our case because all
Right.
the economic resources are better.
Yeah.
Let's bring those resources to the community.
Yes, I'm calling that reentrification. Like that's where you actually want it, where you want to be there. That's
You are so
beautiful.
fun. I love it.
And I love this concept you said about pivot property, finding a pivot property. I want to know as a leader, how do you find those pivot activities or those high leverage activities when you're going into a community? Because there's so many things that you could be doing, right?
Right.
At any point in any day, how do you know, okay, this is something that can really move the needle or one domino that can knock down a whole bunch of dominoes? What does that look like, and how do you identify that? Because I think that
Yeah,
phrase was so beautiful.
thank you. That's a great question. It really is about um, listening and being a part of community, right? And so when we thought this building made some sense and it was a major piece that could change a neighborhood around,
Mm.
we threw some community barbecues before we bought it
Wow.
and asked the owner if we could, hold them on the site. And you serving barbecue, people show up. We got the word out. We
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we mail dropped all around the building
Come
and
on. That's
invited
so
people
great.
to a community party, so to speak, but also took the time to do surveys, sit
Mm.
with people, listen multiple times, and then ask them to rank what was most important to them. And
Mm.
in doing that, Compton's been a community that's been underserved for some time. And so, and the communities surrounding it, Linwood, Gardena, Hawthorne, it's
Yeah.
a lot. And LA is regional, right? We have urban sprawl. And
Uh,
so our county is 900 square miles, the size of some small states. And so I think it's thinking through that and how we could make impact mattered as well. So once we got all that tallied and written up and listened, and spent time with who I'd call key influencers, our neighbors, knocking on doors, walking, talking, listening. And it's its own kind of campaign, right? And when we do that, we hear the stories people don't tell to the press or that the
yeah.
press doesn't want to hear. We hear the stories some people have only told in their church or whatever kind of synagogue or whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
And we listen. And I think adapting to that mattered. And each of the centers we open in the future will have a little different push to it or emphasis because it's in a different neighborhood.
And it's
And
actually community driven,
it's
right? That's
community driven.
powerful.
Yep. And so, like in Wilmington, there will be a huge emphasis around climate justice, environmental remediation. There's a petroleum factory there. It's at the port, which we call our filling station. And it's how do we change that? How do we adapt? How do we help people who've been dying of cancer not die so often anymore? And I think those are the kinds of things that we'll still do our core work. We'll still have our core friends, but you
Yeah.
theme it to what people really need so they can do better and live better.
Man, this is awesome. Well, and I mean, I have so many questions about the climate piece, but I know you're short on time today. I want to know from you, what do you see now for NHS moving forward? What are some of the things that you're most excited about on the horizon? You got these community centers. What else are you seeing on the horizon? And let's talk about, kind of 10 years out. What does the future look like?
Well, I think the future for me would mean a much stronger team, right, than today.
Mhm.
There's always strength. People see us as mid-size, as a business. But I'd say really having patient capital available to do the
Yeah.
deals we need to do. And that may mean as a CDFI, we need to join the Federal Home Loan Bank or some other systems that give us more capital that
Yeah.
we can work with. And so we're assessing that and seeing what we'll do. I serve on the Federal Home Loan Bank Board of San Francisco. So I'm always thinking about ways to strengthen, right?
Mhm.
Members at the bank, but also people who are not members. And if you read the Fed 100 report, it talks about CDFIs being the change for the future. And so
Yes.
that's very exciting to me. We aren't the lender of last resort. We want to be the lender of first resort when it's appropriate. We want
Yeah.
to continue to partner with conventional banks, credit unions, and others to try and, capital driven sources. But let's not be greedy, right? Let's put the money on the street with a decent return. And then groups like ours can price it just a little bit with a little bump. We make
Mhm.
our money on volume. That's always
Yeah.
been true for our CDFI and all the
Mm.
related businesses we run. But I do think that I see us just expanding strategically in those spaces, but also probably doing some more property work, which it has to make sense. We tend to lose money on subdivisions, for example. But
Mm.
if I can build 1,000 ADUs a year, because Black people are living differently, so are white people. I have to say that out loud.
Mhm.
Latinos and Asians tended to always live together intergenerationally. That's normal to culture. Black folks, we assimilated. So it's 18, it's time for you to go. Get to school,
Mhm.
get your
Right.
environment job, do whatever you're going to do, but you're going to get out of here, right? And
Mhm.
so now, post COVID, we see some of everyone trying to figure out how to stay together because housing is unaffordable out
Mm.
west for sure.
Right.
And people, if they can't own it, they want to be closer to mom, their abuela, whoever it is, grandpa,
Yeah.
and try to make sure they stay close because the health and housing are inexplicably, in many ways, connected.
Yeah.
And some of us who were in environmental remediation work all these years, we kind of got that. But I think now everyone's getting it. And
Mm.
that matters too. So I see the health sector being a major investor for housing related groups and small business entities. I know with Alliance, a huge small business emphasis was
Yeah.
how do you make sure your neighborhood is healthy, your business is healthy? Why don't more small businesses own their real estate? I will always ask that question because that's the stability they need.
Yes.
Even if it's fractional ownership, take that and figure out how to make it work for your business, right? And so I see the health sector being a major investor in that way. Instead of me having developed mixed use properties, maybe we're a part of hospitals, right? Maybe we're a part of museums. There's just standing
Love that.
spaces in our community where we can have a desk and be available to people, getting the financial information out to them that they need. And so, 10 years we'll own more, do more, but we also, in my mind, will have leveraged the number of people we touch. And it's always going to be about that because that knowledge is power, for sure, as we help people figure out their next steps with their money.
Whew, you are making such a difference. I love this so much. Now, we're talking about community health, and earlier you were talking about community building, that community building has been at the center of your DNA. What does that mean to you? I've heard some of the ways you're practicing it, but I think, and the reason I'm going this direction, a lot of CDFIs can benefit from being more intentional in their community building practices as really being, at the center of the activity in what's going on in their neighborhoods. So what does community building mean to you? How are you practicing that?
Yeah, I'd say for us, it's back to that listening space.
Mm-hmm.
I still have no problem being in people's homes with a block club, a neighborhood watch, at faith based events. We were at a church, some of us this past weekend, where we have, I set a desk in Inglewood at the church, and we have a staff team there 1 day a week. We're going to expand that as we go. And being able to allow the community in, put out the welcome mat, and tell people it's okay. You can trust us, right? And we show up. And so I think that people being able to speak their minds, we have to say to folks, though, we're not just here to talk and fuss. We're here to do something. We don't want to watch anything else happen to us or through us. I'm not interested in that.
Wow.
If you want change to happen, and we know it's uncomfortable, but let's just break it down in chewable bites, right? And help you do the piece we can do. And then we've got some friends who can help on some other stuff. That community building also says nothing in life is free. Student economics, I'm still that girl. There's no free lunch. There may be no charge on some things. But the notion that you just get what I have, I captioned something this year. I was laughing when I said it. I don't know you, so I don't owe you. And just back up for a second, right? Because you're coming here to these events, you're eating up our food. Well, you got these big sponsors. I said they all give us bricks with no straw. Don't miss that. And we're always scrambling. We just scramble with a lot of people, so we are able to do this. But we need you to invest in yourself. And you can take the time to go to class. There is no charge for 99% of our classes. But if you're going to sit for 8 hours and take up my instructor's time for a homebuyer class, you can spend just a little bit. And then you get a lifelong counselor. Come on, right? You have to give us the truth. That's the other part of community building. No lies, no lies in lending money. If we're granting money on behalf of some government or whoever, still no lies. What are you lying about? Where do you think that's going to go? So I think that part of building community is that truth factor. It's listening. It's encouraging people. It's okay. Showing up and then getting our work done. Final thing. We have to do our job.
Yeah.
And people don't always like it if they're, told not now. They don't always like it if we say we need more information. I get all that. But we're often not counted. So to be counted, you have to show up, tell the truth, give us what we need, and we'll try our best to make it a short list and not a long list.
Yeah. I mean, this applies to so many different areas. All right. So I know we're getting close to your time here. Why CDFI? What about, I just love this piece you mentioning CDFIs as really part of the impetus of what changes the future or one of the core pieces. Why? Why do you think CDFIs have this kind of potential? And why are you playing in this space? Because you could be doing anything, anywhere.
I hope so. I always hope that's true.
Yeah.
I would just say that every neighborhood housing services in the country, I'll do my shout out to NeighborWorks America, They've been our affiliate and family member. We're chartered through them initially as Neighborhood Housing Service. We tried to join CDFI through Treasury in the very first cohort, Justin.
Mm.
And they told us no and said they didn't like our balance sheet. We had too much real estate on it. I said, no, things are just expensive out here. We don't like it. You need to
Right.
figure out how to synchronize it. And that was the end of that back in the day.
Wow.
So we spun off corporations and then licensed them through our Department of Real Estate and made them brokerage companies for real estate and lending. And then we came back the next year or so and got approved. And so we were already lending money. We were
Mhm.
already developing. We were already educating. So I think.
Oh, looks like it cut out a little bit. Oh, there we go. Lori, are you there? Well, just be for a second until I see Lori back on here. Oh, there we go. Hello? Are you with us? You there, Lori?
I'm here. Just
Oh,
sounds
okay. It cut off and cut out, but you were finish up that piece if we can hear you.
Yeah. Just I was saying we joined in the beginning, all neighborhood housing services organizations lent money. And so when CDFI was initiated, we saw it as making a lot of sense. And we're grateful we joined the team.
I love it. All right, last question while we have you here. What is one thing that very few people know about Lori Gay? That was going to be my question. But now y'all are stuck with me. We'll see if we can get her back here to answer that question. Hey, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, you're cutting out. So last question. What is one thing that very few people know about Lori Gay? And then I'll let you go.
That they know about what?
That they know about you. What is one thing that very few people know about you?
I tend to Justin. So I guess I'm trying to think what that might look like, right? But I'm just kids. So we sing, we serve, right? And for me, loving people and being a blessing to people is my purpose. That's why I'm here. And I need to do a better job every day, right, at doing that. So I think many people see me up front and figure she's doing what she. But the truth is, I prefer the back. I prefer to be in the background and let other people shine and push them up. So I'm gonna spend more time trying to do that as I get older, right? And try to pale into the background as much as I can. But there are times when our voices need to be heard, though. And some of us are here to form a line, right? And to stand up and advocate for others. And so I've had a great journey doing that. And I'm phenomenally grateful. I'm sitting in my car today, as you know, Justin, because I'm going to go into a funeral and serve alongside my husband. We had 4 people die in 1 week, 2 weeks ago. And so as we eulogize them and remember their great memories, right? What a tribute to be able to serve the families and care for them during a time of grief. And so I think that, I don't have a problem with my life being an open book. I married a former politician who became a pastor. So some things are quite predictable, right? But we live a public
Wow.
life. We pray that it will always be one that shows gratitude and that we live generously and give away more than we ever do. And I hope I can leave you with that, because I think the biggest life lesson I have is give more than you take. And the rewards of that
Wow.
are infinite and exponential.
Wow. Wow. Thank you. What a perfect way to get into this week where so many people are exercising gratitude in their own ways. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Go ahead and thanks for making time. I know you have a full day and we're sending you so much love, praying for you as you head into this funeral as well. Appreciate
Thank you, Justin. Much love to you and happy Thanksgiving.
All right. Happy Thanksgiving. Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Is Black Money.
about economic liberation and freedom.
Critical conversations to invigorate our communities through Black-led CDFIs.
But most importantly, we want people to create wealth.
When we look at our communities, we still see a big disinvestment.
Going from resourceful to resourced.
CDFIs have that high touch. They understand their customers. They know how to reach out to those customers. They stay in touch with those customers.
We are trying to create job makers and not just job takers.
Yeah, I've even heard it said recently that great leaders don't lead from the top down, they lead from the bottom up because they're actually lifting everybody.
We have to do more than just being a regular lender.
Don't give me this story about if I teach you how to fish. Give me some money.